Hey everyone, Token Dave over here, the dorky token black guy that's just trying to get by. And welcome to another edition of Thank You for Giving, my Thanksgiving celebration where I focus on an individual's contribution to the entertainment industry. Continuing my theme of honoring the late Tobe Hooper, I am talking about his other controversial movie for this review, the 1982 movie, Poltergeist. Alright? The Freelings are, your typical suburban nuclear family. However, their quiet life takes a bizarre turn when strange occurrences happen in their home, and the youngest daughter ends up disappearing. The Freelings are convinced that their house is haunted, and they turn to a group of parapsychologists to explain who's haunting them, why they're haunting them, and how they can get their little girl back. Poltergeist has always been a tricky movie for me to explain, because everything I express about the movie, if someone's never seen it before, they say, doesn't sound anything special. It sounds like your normal, run-of-the-mill, by-the-numbers horror movie. And that's one of the interesting things about Poltergeist, because, it's execution in simplicity. Let me explain. First off, we have the characters, the Freelings. You really don't get much depth about them. You have basically, the father, played by Craig T. Nelson, and he's just quintessential white collar breadwinner whom actually makes all the money in the home, Then you have the wife and everything, Diane, and she's basically, a younger or youngish housewife whom basically you have some glimpses that, she's still young at heart, where, her mentality is still of the 60s to a degree. But, she's basically, the homemaker. You have the teenage daughter, who basically is angsty and, really can't stand being in the home and wants to spend more time with her friends than her family members. You have the son, who is basically, really much into everything that's, modern and everything at the time. It was 1982. Star Wars was still big, You had he had this weird clown and everything, which, and everything. And he had a lot of other electronic sci-fi devices and everything. And then you have the youngest daughter, the name of the whole franchise. Well, not the name, but the character, the lead protagonist of the whole franchise, Carol Ann. The youngest daughter, 6 years old, whom basically is pretty your standard little kid, your standard 6-year-old kid, And yeah, nothing really special to talk about. But the thing is, they really capture what, basically everyone considers the American dream to be. A decent house, couple of kids, picket white fences, and suburbia and everything. American dream, but not all that impressive. Another thing that's not all impressive is actually the ghosts that haunt the house and everything. Now, the thing is, basically, in this movie, while it is still considered a horror movie, some of the fear elements are pretty tame and everything. But, with that said, they're tame, but they're highly effective. The suspense is amazing in this movie. For example, you have basically one of the famous scenes where, the chairs stack themselves out of nowhere. And, you're like, whoa, what the hell just happened? And, another famous scene where a tree comes to life and grabs a kid. You're like, whoa, that was random, But yet, it's effective, and, everything with this movie, while being mediocre at its core, is highly effective. This movie also does a great job in basically establishing some of the threats the family will end up facing later on. I mentioned the tree. They give a brief glimpse of the tree. They in the beginning, you have Carol Ann immediately talking to TV, where, hey, boys and girls, for those that are just really young, or that are in their 20s or in their 20s and all, the TV, they didn't always have programming on. There were times where a network would just shut down and everything, and it will be white static and everything. And that's what happens with Carol Ann. Immediately, she goes down, she sees the TV, white static, and starts talking to the TV. Later on, that becomes a very, very important, element in the movie, and as well as towards the end, And that's the thing. Everything that I'm explaining does not sound impressive at all. So, why is this movie considered so great? It's the execution. You can have something that's done by the numbers, something that's really bland and not special, but if you can effectively pull everything off, you will make an awesome movie. Hence, one of the reasons why, if you watch a lot of TV shows or movies nowadays, you will see some elements of Poltergeist and everything. There's a Family Guy episode where, they did a great parody of it, where Stewie talks to the TV, where the chairs, basically line itself up together in the kitchen, where a tree attacks, and basically where someone gets sucked in to, another dimension. Now, with all this said, if you remember, I opened up with this being one of Tobe Hooper's controversial movies. Well, the thing is, the controversy really comes from behind the scenes and some things that happened after the movie. You see, this movie is written and produced by Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg already doing E.T., for this year. He was on a contract not to direct another movie. So he tapped Tobe Hooper to direct it. But if you kind of follow Tobe Hooper, and if you also follow Steven Spielberg, you kind of see that, this movie doesn't really have Tobe's flair in it to a degree. Some things are pulled off so freaking well, and so unlike Tobe, people question whether or not this was just directed by Tobe Hooper, as Tobe Hooper was just there by name, and Steven Spielberg had more control, or was this basically Tobe Hooper's very magnum opus, where everything came together at the right period, at the right time, lightning in a bottle, if you will, So yeah, even though it says directed by Tobe Hooper, if you pay attention, you could probably see why people feel that he didn't have as much to do with this movie, other than, having his name in the director's credit. Also, we must talk about, the tragic deaths of a couple of the stars of the movie. Particularly in this movie, you had the immediate death of the actress that played the teenage daughter. A couple of months after the movie was released, she was found killed by her chef boyfriend, and later on, a couple years down the road, the actress that played Carol Ann, only 12 years old, ended up dying from unnatural causes. So people say that there was actually a curse on the Poltergeist movie, But with that out of the way, we have basically a movie that has, generic characters, a safe setting, with effective build-up and great suspense in it and all. So, and a lot of memorable scenes. All the memorable scenes that people talk about, majority of them, happen at the end, and basically this movie goes out with a bang. So, all in all I gotta say is Poltergeist is slamming. Alright? Agree? Disagree? Drop me a comment below. Give me a like. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe. And ring that bell so you know when a new video loads. Thank you, Tobe Hooper, for directing one of the most beloved yet safe horror movies of all time.